This is my final oral exam on EDDE 204, where I will be discussing on the implications of standards and the best practices of assessment, how I understand the challenges in assessing students in distance education, develop an assessment framework with detailed assessment tools and human complement. What I'm showing is the discussions on general standards, where I have learned regarding the general definitions of educational testing service assessments and how the Northwest Evaluation Association categorizes them in three levels. Also, the book on language assessment principles and classroom practices gave key assessment principles. Also, I have learned that open and distance education has two additional standards: integrity, where examinations must not be vulnerable to cheating, leakages. Another thing is portability, where the technology must be portable enough to ensure the delivery of the assessment anywhere. What really took my attention is the ISO 23988 of 2007 regarding the code of practice for the use of information technology in the delivery of assessments. These types of standards are very essential to the development of, for example, the Philippine standard. Which brings me to my reflection. Does the Philippine Regulatory Commission and the Maritime Industry Authority have been exploring these types of standards to ensure international compliance of assessment and strengthen the credibility of our examinations rather than just providing with ISO 9001? As a corporation with an integral core of training and assessment of seafarers, truly, these standards that I have learned in this course will be used in our development and future endeavors. Thanks to the teachings that I've learned from this course, I got so much knowledge. I would like to present another exhibit where this is all about the assessment challenges stated by Chaudhry and SVS and Dre using ICT as an assessment tool, which plays a very important role in the transaction of curriculum. The outbreak of COVID 19, also known as the novel coronavirus, has led to a revised growth forecast for global IT spending. The current forecast shows that the global IT industry is declining, but definitely there is a surge in the prices in IT equipment. Based on the IT spending of Statistica, it is also in conjunction to the research that online learning has shown to have increased in the retention of information using ICT equipment. It takes less time, meaning the changes in the coronavirus have caused might be here to stay. As a company running on distance and blended education, I can truly reflect that the institutions must create infrastructures and capacitate their faculty with laptop computers. And another thing is the ability to facilitate the content creation. And lastly, the adaptability of the factual state of traditional teaching in the battered swing of sudden change due to coronavirus. I would like to present Exhibit C. This is called the Transparency Framework from the National Institute for Learning Outcomes Assessment to frame and contextualize institutional assessment practices. I have personally selected this as the basis for a redeveloped framework that will be running in our institution. The transparency framework is the realization that the value of assessment supports policies and guidelines for both teachers and students driven the goal of human complement. Due to its nature, that it is clearly worded, prominent posted, updated regularly, and it is very receptive to feedback. The transparency framework can be interlaced to the standards of training, certification, and watchkeeping, where each student learning statements are very specific to the required competencies, the knowledge and understanding, the proficiencies, and the methods required, and the criteria for evaluation. With regards to assessment plans, the maritime industry has a clear-cut guideline to ensure competencies. These include specifics to the topics with the use of table of specifications, the specifications of written assessments, and lastly, the required skill sets for each seafarer to require the rubrics assessment. We use SCORM and authoring tools to make learning assessment packages downloadable and easy to use. Through this SCORM, we ensure that the programmers knows how to write the codes and play it well with other e-learning softwares, since Our company are content creators creating the de facto industry standard for e-learning interoperability. While talking about context, we ensure that it is presented graphically so we can garner the best results that the learner can carry out. The reason why it is graphically presented is because the nature of the job in the maritime industry is operational in nature and has been mechanically aligned to competencies. Evidently, the transparency framework addresses the questions: how might assessment of students' learning effort be made more visible? It sets priorities and the possibilities with an eye toward communicating meaningful information about students' learning that will be useful for various audiences in an online format. What I have shown here is something that we will continue to do and answer the query of Roel Cantada, where he asked about assessments with the use of virtual laboratories. I believe that the new way of assessment shall be augmentations and virtual reality simulations in a digital world. Evidently, I have learned a lot from EDDE 204 online lectures, and we are using this to for our frameworks to develop our codes of practice with our partner schools such as the Philippine Merchant Marines Academy and the Department of Science and Technology and the Commission on Higher Education. Assessment plays a role in the process of learning motivation. The types of assessment tasks that we ask our students to do determine how students will approach the learning task. In the words of higher education scholar John Biggs, what and how students learn depends on the major extent on how they think they will be assessed.